Musa and Lena lived in a small clay house near the big mango tree at the edge of Kijora village. Every morning, the smell of fresh porridge and roasted maize came from their kitchen. Lena was known as one of the kindest women in the village. She helped old people fetch water and gave children fruit from her garden. Everyone admired her gentle nature. When she smiled, it felt like sunlight after rain. But inside their home, things were not always peaceful. Musa was a proud man who cared too much about what others thought. He worked as a trader in the market, selling grain and beans, and often heard men boasting about their wives, strong, full-bodied women who looked well-fed and healthy. When he looked at Lena, who was slim and light, he began to feel uneasy. "You are too thin," Musa said one night as they ate supper. "When people see you, they think I cannot feed my wife well." Lena looked down at her plate, quiet. She had cooked his favorite meal, spiced fish stew with boiled cassava, hoping he would be pleased. "But Musa," she said softly, "I eat what I can. My body is just small." Musa shook his head. "No, Lena. In our family, a woman must look full and strong. It shows her husband takes care of her." Lena tried to smile, though her heart felt heavy. She did not want to argue. She loved Musa even when his words stung. That night, she sat awake long after he had fallen asleep. The moonlight came through the small window, touching her face. She touched her arms and whispered, "Maybe he is right. Maybe I am too thin." The next morning she decided to please him. When Musa brought her a large bowl of porridge, she ate it all even though her stomach hurt. He smiled proudly. "That's good, my wife. More. Soon everyone will see how beautiful you are." In the following days, Musa began to bring extra food from the market: roasted plantains, fried meat, sweet potatoes, and milk. Lena forced herself to eat everything. Her belly often felt heavy, and she could no longer work as fast as before. When her neighbors came to visit, she smiled and said she was fine, though her eyes looked tired. Her mother, Mama Dory, noticed the change when she came by one afternoon. "My child," she said gently, "you look unhappy. What troubles you?" Lena tried to hide her sadness but could not. "Musa says I must eat more so I can look strong," she whispered. "He thinks people will respect him more." Mama Dory sighed deeply. "My daughter, a good husband loves you for your heart, not your size. You cannot fill an empty heart by filling your stomach." Lena nodded but said nothing. She wanted peace in her home. So she continued to eat even when she wanted to stop. Musa praised her, saying, "Now you are becoming a proper wife." He did not see the pain behind her smile. One evening as the sun went down, Lena sat outside watching the children play. Her body felt heavy but her spirit felt even heavier. She missed the days when she would dance at weddings and laugh freely with her friends. Now she barely left the house. The joy she once carried was fading like a shadow at dusk. When Musa came home that night, he was proud of her again. "Look at you," he said, patting her shoulder. "Now everyone will know my wife is well cared for." But when he looked closely, he saw her eyes. They were not bright like before. They looked tired, distant, like the eyes of someone who had lost a part of herself. Musa frowned but ignored it. He told himself she would be fine. After all, she had everything: food, clothes, and a husband who loved her. Yet he did not realize that love without understanding is like a tree without roots. Later that night, when the village was quiet, Lena sat alone by the cooking fire. The flames danced softly, and the air smelled of smoke and sweet maize. She whispered to herself, "I eat and eat, but I feel empty inside." The wind blew through the trees, carrying her words away. In that silence, she made a small promise to herself, that one day she would find her strength again. Not the kind of strength Musa wanted to see, but the kind that came from her heart. She looked up at the stars, her eyes glistening. "Maybe one day," she said softly, "he will understand that love is not about how I look, but how I live." Far away, a drum sounded from another part of the village, a slow rhythm that echoed her heartbeat. The night felt long and lonely, but in Lena's quiet heart, a spark of courage began to grow, small but strong enough to light her way through the darkness. And though she did not know it yet, that spark would soon change both her life and Musa's forever. Every morning in Kijora began the same way for Lena. The smell of food filled the small kitchen before the sun had even risen. Musa would come in with a wide grin and set down a big tray full of rice, yam, porridge, and fried meat. "Eat, my wife," he would say proudly. "People will see that I take good care of you." Lena smiled weakly and picked up her spoon. She wanted to say no, that her stomach already hurt from yesterday, but she did not. She wanted peace, not arguments. So she forced herself to eat. The food that once made her happy now felt heavy and bitter in her mouth. She ate slowly, swallowing every bite with effort. Musa watched proudly, thinking he was doing something good. At first, neighbors praised him. "Ah, Musa takes such good care of his wife," they said in the market. "Look at how she eats. She will soon look like a true woman of wealth." Their words made Musa puff his chest in pride. He smiled every time someone mentioned Lena's new size. To him it was proof of his success. But others began to whisper behind his back. "Does he love her or only his pride?" they asked quietly. "The poor woman never smiles anymore." They were right. Lena's laughter, the laughter that once filled their home like music, began to disappear. Her bright eyes grew dull and her steps became slow. She no longer danced when she cooked. She no longer hummed her favorite songs. Her clothes no longer fit, but instead of joy she felt shame. At night, when Musa slept, Lena sat by the window looking at the moon. She whispered to herself, "Why can't he love me the way I am?" Tears rolled down her cheeks as the night wind touched her face. She missed the days when they were newly married, when they used to talk under the stars and laugh about small things. Back then he would bring her flowers and tell her she was beautiful just the way she was. But that man seemed gone now, replaced by someone who cared only for what others said. Her mother, Mama Dory, noticed the change the moment she visited. She looked at her daughter's tired face and sighed. "My child, you look unhappy. Is Musa treating you well?" Lena forced a smile. "He loves me, Mama. He just wants me to eat more." "Eat more?" her mother repeated, frowning. "You already look tired. Food should bring strength, not sadness." That night, Mama Dory decided to speak to Musa herself. She found him sitting outside, polishing his shoes. "Musa," she began carefully, "a woman's beauty is not measured by her size. Lena's spirit is fading. You must see it." But Musa only laughed. "Mama Dory, I respect you, but you don't understand. A wife should look healthy and full. I want people to know I care for her." Mama Dory shook her head sadly. "You are caring for her body but starving her heart." Musa frowned but said nothing. Deep down he believed he was right. Days turned into weeks and Lena's body grew heavier. She could no longer move easily or work in her garden. When she tried to walk to the stream, her legs ached. The villagers stopped seeing her smile and even the children noticed. "Auntie Lena doesn't play with us anymore," they whispered. One afternoon as Lena cooked, she suddenly felt dizzy. She dropped her spoon and held the table for balance. The room spun around her. Musa rushed in. "Lena, what happened?" I just need to rest," she whispered weakly. He helped her to bed, but as she lay there, he saw something in her eyes he had never noticed before: emptiness. The woman he had once loved was slipping away, not in body but in spirit. That night, as rain fell softly on the roof, Lena turned her face to the wall and cried quietly. She was trapped in a body she did not want, living a life that no longer felt like hers. She still loved Musa, but she didn't understand why he couldn't see her pain. Meanwhile, Musa sat outside listening to the rain. He told himself he was doing the right thing, that all this was for her. But something inside him felt strange, a small voice that whispered, "Are you sure this is love?" He shook his head and ignored it. The next morning he brought her another tray of food. "Eat, my wife," he said, smiling. But this time she only looked at it and sighed. "Musa," she said softly, "I am full, not in my stomach but in my heart. I can't eat any more." He frowned. "You must eat. People will talk if you stop." "Let them talk," she said, tears filling her eyes. "I am tired of living to please everyone but myself." Musa stared at her. For the first time her words hit him. He saw her face, pale, exhausted and sad, and felt something break inside him. But pride kept him silent. He left the room pretending not to care. That night he couldn't sleep. Her words kept echoing in his mind. "Let them talk. I'm tired." He turned over and looked at her sleeping form. For the first time he noticed how thin her spirit had become, even though her body had grown. He realized he had been feeding her pain, not love. But it was too late to take it back. The damage had already begun. In the darkness, Musa finally whispered, "What have I done to my wife?" Outside, the night was silent except for the sound of rain, soft, steady, and full of quiet regret. The sun hung low over the village of Kijora, painting the sky orange and gold. Inside Musa's home, the air was heavy with the smell of food: rice boiling, stew bubbling, and roasted meat on the fire. Musa sat nearby, proud of the meals he had prepared for Lena. He called out with a smile, "Lena, come and eat. You must finish it all today. You're still too thin." Lena came slowly from the bedroom, her steps weak and heavy. Her hands rested on her sides as if even walking was a task. The bright woman who once moved like a song now walked like someone carrying invisible stones. She smiled faintly, not out of happiness but habit. She sat down and looked at the big bowls before her. "Musa," she said softly, "I am not hungry." "You must eat," he said quickly, his voice sharp with authority. "You need to keep your strength." Lena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw how proud he was of her size. She didn't want to argue. So, she picked up her spoon and began to eat, slowly, painfully, forcing down bite after bite while her husband nodded in satisfaction. When Musa left the room, Lena put her spoon down and stared at the wall. Her heart felt like it was wrapped in sadness. She missed herself, the woman who once danced by the river, who laughed at her friends' jokes, who worked in the garden with joy. Now she could barely move without losing her breath. The days passed and her body became heavier but her soul lighter, like it was slipping away. She began to avoid mirrors. When she looked at her reflection, she did not see Lena anymore. She saw someone trapped. Her neighbors started to whisper again, but this time with pity. "Poor Lena," they said. "She looks full but she doesn't look happy." Even the children stopped calling out to her as they used to. She stayed inside most days, sitting near the window watching the world move without her. One warm evening, as the sun began to fade, Lena tried to cook dinner. She stood by the fire, stirring the pot of yam stew, but her hands trembled. Sweat rolled down her face. She took a step back and the world spun. "Musa," she cried weakly, but before his name could leave her lips again, her body collapsed to the ground. The wooden spoon clattered beside her. Musa ran in, his face pale. "Lena. Lena, wake up." He lifted her in his arms, his heart pounding. For the first time, fear filled his chest. Not anger, not pride, only fear. He shouted for help, and soon the healer, old Deka, came rushing in with his walking stick. The old man checked Lena's pulse, her breathing, then looked up slowly at Musa. His eyes were sad but firm. "You fed her too much, Musa. You made her body heavy but her heart weak. A woman cannot live on food alone. She needs peace, she needs joy." Musa's mouth trembled. "I only wanted her to look strong and healthy," he whispered. Deka shook his head. "You wanted her to look like what others would praise. You forgot that beauty is not in the body, it lives in kindness and joy. You have taken away her light." Musa bowed his head. His chest ached as guilt filled his heart. He looked at Lena lying still, her face pale, her breathing shallow. The same woman who once made their home shine now looked like a fading flame. When the healer left, Musa stayed beside her all night. He held her hand tightly, whispering her name again and again. "Lena. I'm sorry," he said softly. "Please wake up. I didn't mean to hurt you." The night grew darker. Outside, the crickets sang their endless song, and the moon watched through the window. Musa remembered the first time he met her. She had been laughing with her friends at the market, her eyes bright, her laughter sweet. He had fallen in love with that spirit, not her body. So why had he destroyed the very thing that made her beautiful? He wept quietly, his tears falling on her hand. "If only I could go back," he whispered. "I would never force you again. I would let you dance, let you laugh, let you live free." Hours passed. At last, Lena's eyes opened slowly. "Musa?" she murmured weakly. He leaned forward quickly, relief flooding his face. "I'm here, my love. You're safe." She looked at him, her lips trembling. "Why did you do this to me?" He had no answer. His throat felt tight. He bowed his head and said, "I was foolish. I thought love meant showing the world I could care for you. I didn't see that I was hurting you." Lena closed her eyes and whispered, "Love isn't about pride. It's about peace." Those words broke him completely. He stayed beside her until morning, not sleeping, not eating, just holding her hand and listening to her soft breathing. When dawn came, he stepped outside and watched the sun rise. For the first time, he saw how empty the house had become, not from silence but from the loss of joy. He made a promise to himself then. She got better, he would change. He would never again force her to be someone she wasn't. Inside, Lena slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Her body was weak, but her spirit, the part Musa had nearly destroyed, began to return slowly, like the first light of morning after a long night. And as the rooster crowed, Musa whispered again, his voice trembling with regret and hope, "Forgive me, Lena. I will learn what love truly means." The morning sun slipped through the small window of the hut, its light falling gently on Lena's face. Her eyes fluttered open, weak and slow, but she was alive. The smell of warm soup filled the air, not the heavy meals Musa once made, but something light and soft, filled with care. She turned her head slightly and saw Musa sitting by her side, stirring the pot with quiet hands. He looked different now, his proud shoulders had fallen, and his face carried the weight of regret. When he noticed she was awake, he hurried to her side, his eyes wet. "Lena," he whispered, his voice shaking, "you're awake. Thank the spirits." She tried to speak but her voice came out low. "Musa," she said, her words thin like a breeze, "why did you do this to me?" He lowered his eyes, shame burning in his chest. "I thought I was doing right," he said softly. "I wanted people to see you and say, Musa takes good care of his wife. I didn't see how much I was hurting you." Lena watched him quietly. His hands trembled as he placed the bowl of soup beside her. She took a small sip and warmth spread through her. For the first time in many weeks the food felt like comfort, not pain. After a long silence she said, "Love does not grow from control, Musa. It grows when we care for each other's hearts." Her words were soft, but they sank deep into him. He looked up slowly, his eyes meeting hers, and in them he saw not anger but forgiveness, something he didn't deserve, yet she offered freely. He reached for her hand and held it tightly. "Forgive me, Lena," he whispered. "I wanted you to please me but I forgot your happiness." Lena smiled faintly. "Happiness," she said, "cannot be forced. It must be shared." For a while they sat in silence, listening to the sound of birds singing outside and the gentle crackle of the fire. It felt peaceful, a feeling that had been missing from their home for too long. From that day something inside Musa changed. He stopped forcing Lena to eat large meals. Instead he began to listen, truly listen, to her words, her laughter, and even her quiet moments. He brought her fruits from the market, small flowers from the path, and the stories that made her smile again. In the evenings he would sit beside her and ask, "What would you like to eat tonight?" Sometimes Lena would laugh softly and say, "Something light, maybe soup." Other times she would say, "Just your company." And that was enough. As the days passed, Lena's strength began to return. Her body was still soft but her spirit, her laughter and warmth, came back brighter than before. The neighbors noticed the change too. They saw Musa helping her with chores, walking beside her instead of in front of her, and smiling with genuine care. "Have you seen Musa lately?" one woman said at the well. "He's like a new man. He even washes dishes now." The others laughed but with kindness. They could see that love had returned to that household, not the proud, heavy kind that seeks to impress others, but the quiet kind that heals. One evening Lena sat outside watching the sunset. Musa joined her, sitting close enough to feel the warmth of her shoulder. "You look happy," he said softly. She smiled, her eyes on the fading orange sky. "Because I am free," she said. "And because you finally see me, not just my body but me." Musa felt tears rise again, but this time they were not from guilt. They were from gratitude. "I will never forget what I almost lost," he said. "You taught me that love is not shown by how much someone eats, but by how much peace we give them." Lena turned to him, her eyes glowing softly in the evening light. "And peace," she said, "is the sweetest meal of all." They sat there until night fell, watching stars appear one by one. Musa reached for her hand again and she let him hold it. The air was cool, filled with the smell of flowers and wood smoke. For the first time in a long while, their hearts beat together, not in pride or demand but in understanding. From that day forward, Musa became known as a changed man. He spoke gently, smiled more often, and treated Lena not as someone to mold, but as someone to love. And Lena, light, strong and peaceful, became his reminder that kindness was stronger than pride. Every morning he brought her fruit and said, "For your smile." And every night before sleep she would whisper, "Thank you, Musa, for letting love breathe again." The house that was once filled with silence now echoed with laughter, music and soft voices. The neighbors often said that you could smell happiness from their home, the scent of soup, the sound of two people finally at peace. And though Lena never forgot the pain of those dark days, she forgave it, because from that pain something more beautiful had grown: understanding. And in that understanding, they both found what they had lost: love that didn't need to prove itself, only to be kind. Weeks passed and the morning air in Kijora grew softer. The rains had ended and the village was bright again, full of color, noise and life. Lena woke early each day, her strength slowly returning. She no longer felt trapped in her own body. Her steps, once heavy and uncertain, became light again. She would walk to the small stream behind their home, fetch water, and hum the songs she used to sing before everything had changed. Musa watched her from the doorway many mornings. Sometimes he could not believe how close he had come to losing her, not only her life but her joy, her laughter, her spirit. He had tried to make her into something she was not, but now, watching her move freely, he felt both guilt and deep peace. He was thankful that she had forgiven him. One warm afternoon, Lena decided to visit the market for the first time since her illness. She dressed simply, wrapping her scarf around her head. Her body was back to its natural shape, neither too thin nor too full, but strong and comfortable. She looked in the small mirror and smiled to herself. For the first time in months, she saw not weakness, but calm confidence in her reflection. Musa came out from the back room carrying a small basket. "I'll walk with you," he said quietly. Lena smiled. "Of course," she said. "But today you will not rush me." He laughed softly. "I have learned my lesson," he replied. "I'll walk beside you." They stepped out together, hand in hand, as the afternoon sun painted the village in gold. The market was alive with sounds, traders calling out their prices, children laughing, and drums echoing in the distance. When Lena walked through the crowd, people turned to greet her. "Lena, you look well again," an old woman called out. "It warms my heart to see your smile." Another woman selling mangoes said, "Ah, Musa, you are lucky. Your wife shines brighter than before." Lena laughed gently, greeting everyone with kindness. Musa smiled too, but this time his smile came from gratitude, not pride. He no longer cared for how others saw him. What mattered was that Lena was happy. They stopped by a fruit stall, and Lena picked up a ripe orange. "Do you remember," she asked, "when you used to bring me big bowls of yam and meat every night?" Musa rubbed his neck and laughed awkwardly. "I remember," he said. "I thought I was showing love. But I was only feeding my own pride." Lena looked at him kindly. "Now you bring fruits," she said. "And peace." He nodded. "I learned," he said softly, "that love feeds the soul, not just the stomach." The fruit seller overheard and smiled. "Wise words, Musa," she said. "You both teach us that real love is gentle." Word spread through the market about what Musa said. People began whispering, not in gossip but in quiet respect. The story of Musa and Lena had become something more than a personal change. It became a lesson for others. One young man, newly married, said to his friend, "I want to love my wife the way Musa now loves Lena, with patience." And an older woman told her daughter, "Beauty fades when love becomes control. But look at Lena, her beauty shines because she is free." As the sun began to lower, Musa and Lena walked home slowly, their baskets filled with fruits and vegetables. The road was quiet, the wind soft. Birds called from the trees, and the sound of the river whispered nearby. Musa looked at Lena and said, "I used to think strength was about control. Now I see strength is about care." Lena smiled, her eyes warm. "You finally understand," she said. "Love grows only where there is respect." When they reached home, Musa lit a small lantern and Lena began to prepare dinner. It was a simple meal, just soup, bread, and fruit. But it felt like a feast. They ate together, talking and laughing softly. There was no pressure, no demands, only comfort and warmth. After dinner they sat outside under the stars. The night was peaceful. Crickets sang and the air smelled of wet earth and flowers. Lena leaned her head on Musa's shoulder. "Musa," she said softly, "do you know why the healer said beauty lives in kindness?" He shook his head gently. "Tell me." "Because kindness never fades," she said. "It grows with every good deed, every gentle word." He smiled and took her hand. "Then I will spend the rest of my life being kind," he said. Lena laughed softly. "That will make both of us beautiful," she replied. The stars above seemed to twinkle brighter, as if blessing their promise. Days turned into weeks and the peace between them grew. Musa became known in the village for his humility and his change of heart. When people asked him what changed, he always said, "I learned that love feeds the soul, not just the stomach." Children playing nearby would repeat his words, not fully understanding them but sensing their truth. And the elders of Kijora would nod wisely, saying, "That is how true love grows, through lessons learned with humility." One day Lena and Musa visited old Deka, the healer who had helped them. She smiled when she saw them. "Ah, my children," she said, "I see the light has returned to your home." "It has," Lena said softly. "Thank you for showing us the way." The old woman looked at Musa. "And you, Musa, do you now see where true beauty lives?" He bowed his head. "Yes, Mama Deka," he said. "It lives in kindness and in peace." The healer nodded. "Then you have truly healed." As they walked home, the sky glowed red and orange with the setting sun. Lena's hand rested gently in Musa's. They didn't need to speak. Everything had already been said through their actions, through care, patience, and forgiveness. The story of Musa and Lina spread through Kijora, told in quiet voices at evening fires and in market corners. It became a tale of love, not the kind that boasts but the kind that grows after pain. And whenever someone spoke their names, it was said with respect, as a reminder that love, when it is real, never demands, it understands. That was the lesson the whole village carried, that the heart, when treated kindly, becomes stronger than any body ever could. The story of Musa and Lina lived on, not as a warning but as a light, a gentle truth that true love is not about power or pride but peace.